Okay, Daf Beis Yevamos. Okay, before we read the Mishnah, I just want to, and today we're reading the Mishnah. The Mishnah is we're going to stop at the Gemara, and we'll pick up from the Gemara, starting with the Gemara tomorrow. Okay, so I just want to clarify where we're heading to. We're heading to Daf Beis and Beis to the end of the Mishnah. We'll start from Michti in the Gemara. It's Hashem tomorrow. Yeah, and it's a meaty Mishnah. So now in the Hakdama we discussed. I'm looking around. Everyone is here except you, but I'm pretty sure you're okay without the Hakdama, right? Okay, so. We had discussed the idea that when that Hashem says in the Torah that when a brother dies childless and he has another brother, that brother's responsibility is to make sure that the dead brother's home is not just left empty, and therefore his responsibility is to marry any one of his widows if he's childless, and that marriage process is called Yibum. We explained that when the brother dies, let's say call it Shimon is dying, and by the way, let's get used to that. I just wanted to clarify. If you're learning with the art scroll, so a lot of times their Reuven and Shimon is not going to be our Reuven and Shimon. So don't assume that the same Shimon is being discussed. Our Shimon is always dying. Our Reuven is always the subject of whether he's going to have you. Oh, is that how he does? Shimon's the one dying? Okay. So we're going to have Shimon dying in almost all of our cases. Unfortunately for Shimon's family, he's going to be losing.
And when there's 10 brothers, single.
So no. Obviously, as the cases get more complicated, it'll expand. But for now, at least in the first mission, the first couple of days, as we're getting familiar with the ideas, Reuven is going to be the guy who is the subject matter, and Shimon is going to be the one who is passing and leaving over wives. Okay. So what we had discussed in the Hakdama, just in a very brief review, right, is that when you have brothers, right, so brothers are not allowed to marry each other's wives, right? There's an Aveira in the Torah. It's one of the Erevas that are listed in Achremos, along with 20 plus other ones that a man is not allowed to be with, mother, daughter, daughter-in-law, daughter's daughter, all of the different things that are mentioned there, and we'll get to them as we read the Mishnah. The halacha is that all of those are at a minimum you're chayiv kares, if perhaps some of them you're chayiv misa, death, different types of death depending upon which one. But the point is that all of them who would in a normal life scenario not be able to make kiddushin, you can't marry. If you handed kesef kiddushin to your daughter-in-law, even after your son divorced her, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't work. That kesef kiddushin is just a gift. It doesn't actually make a kiddushin. So any of these women we explained, if they should be married to someone and that person dies, and then now they are falling to the brother, that person as an erva is not going to be spoken to in the world of Yibum, right? So we'll do it slowly, right? So what is the mitzvah of Yibum? The mitzvah of Yibum and the chiddush of Yibum, the novel idea of Yibum is that despite the fact that the wife of your brother is off limits, let's say your brother has children and he passes away or he divorces his wife, you cannot marry her. That is an absolute no-no. And not only is it a no-no, it's listed in Achremos as one of the Achai Bekrisos. If you tried to marry her, it wouldn't work. If you had sex with her and had a child, that child is a mamzer. Achai Bekrisos. And yet the Torah comes along and says that if your brother should happen to die childless, all of a sudden, not only are you allowed to be with her, it's a mitzvah to be with her. And the mitzvah is called Yibum. In English, it's levirate marriage. Hopefully that's the last time we hear that.
The mitzvah even fall on all the brothers?
Yes, the mitzvah even falls on...
One of them marries?
Yes, the mitzvah falls on all of them. And they have the option of any one of them have the option of consummating the relationship with a sexual act. That sex act is the act of Yibum. Once one of them does it, one second, let's do it slowly. Let's do questions are good, but it needs to be done structurally. Yeah, I promise you. No. I want it to be clear. And so the questions, although important, if I don't clarify it, then ask me. It's hard for me to keep track. So
also the whole Masechta clarifies all these things.
Yeah, but I want to do it. But it is important to layer it down one step at a time. Yeah. So like this. So you have a bunch of brothers. Every single one of them are responsible to fill their brother's home that just ended. Brother dies. Every one of them have a responsibility, but they don't all have the responsibility to do the act. Once one of them does it, now all of the other brothers are completely absolved of having to do the mitzvah of Yibum. And not only that, since there's no longer a mitzvah of Yibum, whatever Aveira existed before the mitzvah of Yibum was spoken comes back. So as an example, let's say you have Reuven and Shimon and Levi and Yehuda and Yisachar and Zvulun, all these brothers. Shimon dies, leaving over a wife. Now, right now, that wife is mutter to every one of the brothers. Not only is she's mutter, she's zika. There's a zika. There's a bond that exists between her and all of the brothers. That bond that is created min hashamayim in this mitzvah of Yibum means that although she would have normally been a complete major problem because she is your brother's wife, she is all of a sudden not only mutter, but there's a mitzvah to be miyabim her. Let's say Reuven was miyavim her. So now she's married to Reuven, completely his wife. And let's say Reuven divorces her now. So now she's walking around, a divorced woman. Actually, she's a widow of the first, a divorce of the second. Is Levi allowed to marry her? Of course not. Levi is not a marrier, just like he's not a marry his sister. She's a walking, talking erva. Doesn't get more erva than her. She is a regular, normal erva. A brother's wife who doesn't have a mitzvah of yibum is an erva. No different than any other erva. Mother, daughter, sister, doesn't make a difference. Okay. That is a yesod. That is a concept, a foundational idea that you need for Yevamos. That a woman who is married to your brother, or who was once married to your brother, who does not have the mitzvah of yibum is no different than any of the other arayas. So we explained in the Hakdama, and I just want to say it outside, that the halacha is that despite the fact that the Torah said you do not have to be concerned with her status as an erva when your brother dies without children, despite that fact, if she's also a different erva, let's say she happens to be your daughter, meaning let's say Shimon, your brother, married your daughter, right? Meaning Shimon married his niece. Very possible. Allowed 100%, absolutely. Yeah. So let's say Shimon married your daughter. He's allowed to marry your niece. A little weird for us to think about, but absolutely 100% kosher lahalacha. Especially after the Holocaust. Yeah. 100%. When you don't have a lot of family members and you don't know who's what, who you can trust. More than a lot of Jews. Okay. So Shimon marries your daughter. Shimon, we're gonna keep it nice and simple. And then Shimon dies. So normally you have a mitzvah of yibum with Shimon's wife if she dies childless. Problem is the woman who is going to be the woman you're supposed to be yibum with is a woman who you're not allowed to have sex with. Not only are you not allowed to have one, if you had sex with her, the child would be a mamzer. If you made kedushin in her in another world, the kedushin wouldn't work. She's an erva to you. She's on the list in Achremos. This is the case, right? So this is the chiddush of yibum. The chiddush of yibum is on the one hand, it disregards the status of this woman as an erva because she's the wife of your brother. But in regards to all other arayas and all other ervas, that erva doesn't go away. We'll learn it from Sukkim in the Gemara. But so Yibum, the mitzvah of Yibum says this erva relationship is cool. Go for it. And not only go for it, you must go for it. And all of these other arayas relationships, if they happen to be contained in that same woman, whoa, the stop sign, can't do it. Right? Okay. Now, the chiddush of the Mishnah that we're discussing here is teaching us that not only is that halacha true for your daughter who's married to your brother, right? If your brother, again, married his niece. But let's say your brother had a second wife. We discussed that nowadays no one has two wives, or at least not that I'm aware of, right? And if you do, maybe only under incredibly extenuating circumstances where a person's wife is maybe Alzheimer's, or you have situations like that where maybe they're matir under very, very limited circumstances to have a second wife. Generally speaking, nowadays we don't have two wives. But in the times Sfardim have a little bit more room, a little bit more wiggle room, but even Sfardim have taken upon themselves at this point to not do it. Regardless, the point is that nowadays, while it's very uncommon, in the times of the Gemara, certainly in the times of the Torah, there was no problem marrying many wives. In fact, it was even considered a productive thing to do because they had a lot of kids, they can help out with each other on a practical level. And a man can marry many wives. A woman can only marry one man. Therefore, we're always viewing every woman as belonging to, if she's married, to one family, one home, one bias. So you might have Reuven with 5 wives and Shimon with 5 wives. There's 2 houses here. There's the house of Reuven, who has 5 wives. There's the house of Shimon, who has 5 wives. Okay. So now, what we're saying over here is that when a brother dies childless, no matter how many wives he has in his home, his bias, his home, falls to the brother to step into his shoes. In order for it to work, every single one of the women in the house of his brother must be capable of doing Yibum. If any one of them are incapable of doing Yibum, let's say they're an erva. So let's say Shimon married 4 random women and Reuven's daughter. So Shimon, all 5 of those women are completely permitted to him. And now Shimon dies and unfortunately is childless. So those 5 women are now sort of quasi-married to Reuven temporarily in this Zika relationship. And Reuven has to do Yibum with one of them, you would think. But since one of the 5 women is an erva, let's say his daughter, that woman, the erva, makes it now that every single one of the other women no longer have a mitzvah yibum either. Which means, what are they? Effectively, they're the wife of your brother, where there's no mitzvah yibum. The wife of your brother, where there's no mitzvah yibum, is an erva. So if Shimon were to die and Levi, your other brother, was to go and marry, let's say, one of the random women that was in that house of Shimon, right? What is that woman? That woman is an erva to you, because she is the wife of your brother Shimon, who you had no mitzvah of yibum with.
Right.
And once you have an erva relationship, that erva relationship is forever, just like diamonds. It doesn't go away. Once you have an erva relationship with a woman, the fact that the reasoning behind that erva is no longer the case. Let's say your daughter-in-law got divorced from your son. Doesn't matter. Your daughter-in-law is usher to you for the rest of your life. Now, there is one exception we discussed in the Hakdama, which is the sister of your wife.
Right.
She is only usher to you while she's alive. While your wife is alive, her sister is usher to you. But if your wife never dies, you're mutter to her sister.
We'll see you divorced. You said also.
I made a mistake. Yeah. So divorce doesn't help. It's not enough just a divorce. If you divorce her, you're still not allowed to be with the wife,
Only
with the
if wife is
sister.
dead.
Only if the wife has died. I looked it up yesterday and I realized I made a mistake. Correct. Now, so that's the only exception. So let's sort of put that on the side for a moment. Otherwise, every normal arayas, once it's an erva relationship, that erva relationship doesn't go away, which really effectively means that anyone who's part of, in our case, Shimon's bias, any one of those 5 ladies, once one of them is putter, all of them are putter, and once all of them are putter meaning there's no mitzvah ibum, they effectively are a normal, regular, vanilla wife of your brother. Wife of your brother is a chiyav kares. It's an erva. If she goes and marries someone else, or any one of them goes and marries, let's say, Levi through Yibum, or Yehuda through Yibum, or Yisachar or Zvulun, or whatever it is, every single one of those women to Ruvain will effectively be an erva, which means he's not allowed to do Yibum with her. And therefore, if she's married to some other, she has a co-wife, a tzara, that other tzara will also be an erva again, and that will never stop. You could theoretically speaking have, again, it's a little insane of a story, you can have 20 brothers, right? 20 brothers, and every one of them have more than one wife, and every time each one is marrying the co-wife who's not related, who wasn't in the previous case, and yet every single time they'll all be patur. That is effectively what I just said outside is the din of the Mishnah. We touched it yesterday, touched it 2 days ago. That is effectively what we're going to discuss. The second half of the Mishnah is going to introduce a couple of other concepts. When we get there, I'll explain them. They're not that difficult to understand. But what it's going to teach is a fundamental idea, which is, when do we care about these relationships being true? Meaning, as an example, if I'm explaining that when Shimon has 5 wives, right, and one of them is your daughter, Reuven's daughter, so we're saying that all of the other women are now not going to be chayiv and yibum, patur from yibum. What happens if Shimon is married to your daughter, and before Shimon dies, your daughter Nebuch dies? Okay, so a person's daughter was married to his brother, but now Shimon died. Now the daughter died. So when Shimon now dies, your daughter isn't part of his home anymore. She once was, but at the moment of death, she wasn't. So what would we say? Would we say, well, no, once married in a part of a bias that once at one point contained erva, that's it? Or no, is the moment of death like the trigger for when we question, is this bias? That's the only thing we care about. The only thing we care about is the moment of death. When the brother dies, at that moment, who is in his bias? Is any of those women an erva? Then they're all no yibum. If they're all not an erva, if they all don't have any real reason to not be connected to the parsha of yibum, then there's a full yibum, and Reuven can do yibum with any one of them.
You bring up a corollary to that is if a child predeceases.
Yes, good question. Yeah. Well, sorry. Continue.
Predeceases the father.
Yes. Yeah.
Then there's still a zika. There's still a din of yibum.
Yes. With all of the other brothers.
Meaning, having once had a child is not enough to be called a bias.
No. Say that again.
Having had a child, but then the child predeceases the father.
No. Here we're talking about where Reuven's daughter, right, has married Shimon, and Shimon's wife.
The fact that Shimon had a baby once.
Shimon didn't have the baby.
I'm just saying, if you have a brother, that had a child, but the child.
Oh, okay. So you take it to the next step. Yes. That idea is true also. Meaning, let's say, Not only that. Yes, it's a similar idea. The idea is that all we care about is the moment of death.
He had a son that died. He had a baby.
Right. So
I didn't follow what you were saying. Yes.
What would
Is
happen
this still evil?
if this
I can't have cross questions.
Or daughter.
Son died?
Or a daughter.
A different case, but yeah.
I thought you said once you have a child, it's always
No, it's the point I'm making. Yeah, exactly. So not only if you die and have a child, but that child dies the next day, that doesn't matter.
Goes back.
Yibum is determined at the moment of death.
Even so, if you have no children at the time of death, then there's no erva.
And there's no erva, then there's a din yibum. Yeah.
Even if you had like up to 2 children, they both died.
As long as they died before he died.
Wow.
There's no bias.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yes,
Even a
correct.
girl, right? Even a girl.
The
Yeah, well,
girl,
no,
boy,
no,
anyone, the
We
only
didn't discuss that
child,
till now.
even a mamzer, the only child that is, if alive when the person dies, will still create a scenario of Yibum is if it's a guy. That is the only, if
White doesn't count.
a child, if a child is non, let's
Get
say
a child with a non-Jewish
the man
woman.
had a child with a, Arnold Schwarzenegger was
Unless
the
they
housekeeper. It's
converted,
not a
child
good
converted.
question, but no.
That's
No, it's not really halachically viewed. Mamzer makes no yibum. That's considered having a child, of course. Yeah. The only one who wouldn't would be if it would be a non-Jewish child.
And conversion
Meaning, if your
doesn't
wife
matter.
is not Jewish and the child is born before she converts, then if she converts first, then as a kid, then you have a kid. But yeah, okay.
Mhm.
You can ask questions. What if she converts while she's pregnant? Okay, complicated questions, but okay. So now, once we've established what I just said, that means that the point that we really care about is we don't care what happened until that point, and we don't care what happens after that point. But at the moment of the pronouncing of death in the hospital, we look at his family. Who's his family? If anyone in his family is patur from Yibum and alive, then Yibum is not chal, and all of them are going to be patur. So the second half of the Mishnah is going to discuss some cases where what happens if the erva that's being discussed, which is creating this whole problem, what if she's no longer around? Either she dies, or we find other reasons to say that she's not considered married to the brother. Okay, we're going to read the Mishnah, and as I read through it the first time, I'm not going to do diagrams explaining each case. I'm just going to say what they are. We'll get to the end of the Mishnah, and depending upon time, we'll go back through them and then spend whatever time we can, if we need to go through each one of the cases to make sure we understand exactly how they're made up. It'll be smarter to do it this way, because if we end up spending time doing the diagrams first, and we don't get to the end of the Mishnah, we'll all be frustrated that tomorrow we're starting, behind. Okay, says the Mishnah, Mitzvah Hashem, we should be zocha. I'll learn this Masechta. Clearly, just very quickly, I want to say just a couple of names. The learning should be a schus for Shlema for Esther, Sarah Bas Chaya Pesel, for Dov Mordechai ben Bela Sheva, Elisheva Shena Bas Adina Edel, Yeshua Bekarov Shaduch, also for Shulamis Chana Leah Bas Rachel, as well as Shalom ben Malka Rosa, and Lilu Nishmas Rabbi Yitzchak Moshe ben Yehuda Yoshua Hakoyen, Rabbi Tzvi Avigdor ben Aaron Elazar.
And Eva Shlomit Bat Ilan Esther.
Eva Shlomit Bat Ilan Esther. I'm surprised I didn't write that down.
Yeah, no.
Hadara Sarah.
Please remind me.
I'm going to text it to you.
Hadara Sarah Bas.
Adara Sarabas
Pesilea.
Pesilea.
Leora Bas Sarah.
Leora Bas Sarah. These are Refuah Shleimus, I assume, correct? Yeah. So yeah, any names, just send. We're going to continue saying names until it becomes, let's Mitzvah Hashem get to the point where we don't have any names, but until it gets too laborious in the beginning, I might as well say it. Once it gets so much that I have to figure out who to say, we'll start charging people. But until that happens, I think. Says the Mishnah, Chamesh Esrei Nashim Potros Taruseim B'Saros Taruseim Mina Chalitza Mina Yivim Matzofa Olam. First phrase, there are 15 women who, as a byproduct of their erva relationship with the brother, if they should happen to be in a scenario where they're falling to the brother, their erva, their arayas, creates a ptur. It's potros. They exempt Ruvain in our case, right? So Chamesh Esrei Nashim, should they fall to Ruvain, Potros Tzarosein, they as an erva make their co-wife pater from Yibum, Vitzaros Tzarosein, and then therefore if their tzara goes and is with Levi the brother, Levi's co-wife is now a tzaras tzara. We discussed this. If you have questions, feel free to ask. Mina chalitza, mina yibum. They pater them from both chalitza and yibum, and it's important to acknowledge that both of them are pater. This is not a scenario where we say, well, since they can't have sex, therefore there's no yibum, but you might as well do a chalitza just to sort of cover it. No, what we say over here is, and this is a very important concept in Yevamos, as we'll see throughout the Masechta, generally speaking, if someone is completely exempt from yibum, they're completely exempt from chalitza. Once there is no mitzvah yibum, there is no requirement for chalitza, because the reason why there's no yibum is because there's no zika. Right? There's the removal of zika, the removal of that quasi-marriage bond that Hashem sort of gives the brothers when the one brother dies is gone. When that's gone, chalitza is not required to get rid of it. She's just a regular almana who now is mutter to the whole world and very much usher to every one of the brothers because she's the wife of a brother. Says the Mishnah. This is true at Sofa Olam. This goes all the way down, and the Mishnah is actually going to go through the case, which is why I just want to list off the Mishnah's cases now. Veiluhain, what are they? Bita, we'll see. Daughter, that's your daughter. Marries, Shimon marries your niece. Ubas Bitai, Shimon marries your niece's daughter.
Great niece.
All right, so this is your
Great niece.
It's Shimon marrying his great niece, but it's going to be your granddaughter through your daughter. And Bas Beno, this is if your granddaughter through your son's daughter. married your brother. Yeah. And again, I find it helpful to not use the diagrams as much as possible to get these ideas sort of wrapped in your head. Obviously, if we need them, we should use them. They're there. They're a help. We should definitely use them if we need to, as much as possible, if it's going to help us understand things. But I do think it's a good exercise for us to get into the habit of trying as best as we can to think about it more conceptually and less diagrammically. If that's even a word, diagrammatically. Yeah, thank you. Bas Ishto, okay? This is your daughter. Potentially, meaning Bas Ishta is just your wife's daughter. So let's say your wife had a previous daughter and then you married her, or you and your wife had a daughter. If you and your wife had a daughter, that is also called Bas Ishta. Right? This includes your daughter and your stepdaughter.
But that's already covered in Bito.
So the Gemara is going to explain why do I have both. The Gemara is going to tell us that the first Bito was talking about if you raped a woman. If you raped a woman and had a child, we don't say that just because it happened through an awful act, that's not your daughter. In the end of the day, it's your daughter. And that woman, if she should marry your brother, don't ask me what type of family we're discussing where brothers are marrying the women that her brother raped. But the point is, his brother raped. But the bottom line is that can happen. So the Gemara will explain how the first case Bitos are talking about it. And really the first case of Bito and then Bas Bito and Bas Bina, right? Those cases are all talking about a byproduct of rape. And then now these cases we're discussing now, Bas Ishto, Ubas Bina, Ubas Bita,
Same. No.
really is a repeat of the first three cases. This is talking about not through rape. So really, these six cases are yeah.
Got it.
Okay. So we got six down before we even broke a sweat. Okay. All right. So we have 9 left. Let's knock them out. Chamo. So your mother-in-law. There's 2 scenarios for this, but let's just keep it simple. Reuven's married to Janet. Janet's mother married his brother. That's his mother-in-law. Shimon dies. His mother-in-law is falling to him along with whoever else. His mother-in-law is an erva. That knocks out all the other ladies. Ve'em chamoso, that woman's mother. Ve'em chamav, that woman's husband's mother. Right, that's his. Right, that's his father-in-law's mom. Your father-in-law's mom. Your father-in-law's mom married your brother.
The queen mother.
Yeah, right. So you're shver, you're the father-in-law, right? Yeah, he's got a mom, old lady probably, but is what it is. She goes and marries your very much older brother, I assume. Your brother dies, Nebuch, leaves over this old lady who is your erfa. Why? Because she is your father-in-law's mom. Father-in-law's mom you're not allowed to be with, and therefore she's an erva. Any of the other co-wives that she's along with will also become butter.
The
arayos, each one of these women as an arayos is a pasuk in Achrim.
Can him come over there?
Yeah, some of these are learned from Drasha, some of these are learned before in the psukim. The achoso me'imos. These next 2 cases are unique in that until now, the brothers we've been discussing, we didn't clarify, is it brothers from the father only and brother from the mother or not? Didn't matter. Here it's going to matter. Achoso me'imo is your sister. How can your sister ever fall to you? She's also your brother's sister, unless you guys share a father, but you don't share a mother. So if you have 2 brothers, right? 2 brothers who share a father, they don't share a mother. Right. So since they don't share a mother, they can each have a sister from their own mother, and those 2 women are not related to each other at all because they don't share a father or a mother. Right. So therefore, you can have Reuven and Shimon who are brothers from their father. Right.
It's all step. It's a step relationship completely because there's no blood.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Meaning each of them have a half.
Correct.
Each of them have a half.
The wrong half.
Right. Each of them have a half. And now Reuven
Not related by blood.
They're not related.
No. Shimon and Reuven are related by blood. Their fathers are the same. But let's say we'll use names. Reuven and Shimon. Shimon is married to Dinah. Sorry, Shimon has a sister Dinah from his mother, not from his father. So who is Dinah? Dinah's not related to Reuven at all.
Right. 0, right.
Yeah, so that's the case.
There's no blood relationship.
Since there's no blood relationship there, right?
I was thinking about the kids.
Yeah. No. Okay.
No.
So now I'm just pointing out that you can have such a person. So now imagine you have Reuven. In our case, Reuven and Shimon brothers, right? Shimon, remember, is the one who's dying, leaving over a wife. So Shimon went ahead and married Reuven's sister from his mom. Reuven's sister from his mom is not related to Shimon at all, but he's very much related to Reuven through the mother.
Yep.
So since that happened, if Shimon were to die along with other wives, leaving over her and other wives, those other wives, Tsaros, would be pater, because one of the people in this bias is an erva to Reuven. What's the erva? It's his sister from his mother.
Right.
Chosam imo. The next one as well, the achos imo. What about your aunt? So your mother's aunt is also your brother's aunt, right? No.
Yes.
Only if
it's the same scenario.
So exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Your mother's sister, but specifically your mother, that's not his mother.
Right. Yes.
You are brothers from the father, not brothers from the mother. So your mother's sister, your aunt, which is very much an erva to you, is allowed to marry Shimon in this scenario. Why? Because who is Shimon to her? Nobody. She's Shimon is the brother of my sister's son. Big deal. Who cares? That's not my blood relative, therefore there's no erva. So Shimon is allowed to marry her. And if he has other wives and dies, all of those wives, because they contain within one house an erva, the erva of my mother's sister, that erva makes me, okay. So you see what I mean when I say it this way without having to resort to the pictures, it really does make it sort of click in your head a little bit. And if it's a little slow, we can go through it again. Afterwards, we can go through the diagrams. I just think it's helpful to
20
do
minutes
so.
looked at the pictures. Yes, I was so confused. I couldn't
Yeah.
figure out what was going on.
And the pictures will help. They will as we get to more complicated cases. And I think it's good.
No, that will help if you when you read the picture.
I agree. Yeah,
This is
yeah.
not gonna.
You also about that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I didn't buy that. No.
She'll
I'd
she'll cover the cost.
How
She'll
much
cover
is
the
Yeah, but if you write it out and you show it to us, that will work.
The achos ishto. Achos ishto. What's an achos ishto? We discussed.
Achos ishto.
Yeah. Achos ishto. What's achos ishto? Achos ishto is very standard. Yes.
Sister-in-law.
Achos ishto means your wife's sister. This is the one example we spoke before that has this unique category that this is the only temporary one. Meaning, if your wife should not, God forbid, die, all of a sudden this woman becomes mutter to you.
But your brother's let him marry her.
Your brother, of course, is allowed to marry. Two brothers are allowed to marry sisters.
We use the word sister-in-law in two completely different ways.
Completely
We
different
shouldn't
ways, yeah.
Confuse them.
Yeah.
We have two types of sister-in-law.
Right.
Mhm.
Your wife's sister and your brother's wife.
Oh.
Right. And the relationships are
You're
two
right,
different things.
you're
Yeah.
right,
They're
you're right.
both-
That was what I was touching on yesterday about how the English,
Right,
while
right,
helpful for us to wrap our head around it,
Right.
we have to be careful not to quote them as halachic terms. Because your aunt, for instance, could be three separate women. It could be your mother's sister, it could be your brother's sister.
Also step,
It could also
right,
be
yeah,
your
right.
your brother's brother, your father's brother's wife. What is your father's brother's wife? Nothing. So you can't just say aunt, because if your
Right.
father's brother's wife, who is my aunt, I'm thinking, who's my father? Oh, that's Debbie. Debbie's my aunt, but she's not related to me.
We say aunt by marriage sometimes.
Right,
But with
right.
sister-in-law,
But
we
that'll-
don't even have a distinct.
Well, then all we're doing is just
Yeah.
trading the confusion of the Gemara with the confusion of English, and that to me is not beneficial. If we're going to use the English words, it should only be
You're
to
right,
make it
yeah,
cleaner,
right, yeah.
not to make it.
Don't say in-law. So it's,
Yeah.
That's gonna be
So that's what we'll stick to the Hebrew, and I promise you, the more we do it, the same thing with Yavam and Yevama and Zika and all these words. The closer we get to making those words part of our vernacular, the easier the Masechta will become. Okay, so V'achos Ishto is your wife, you're married. Her sister is a problem. So Reuven and Shimon married sisters. Shimon had a bunch of other wives. Shimon dies, and now all of a sudden, your wife's sister is part of the
Part of
group
the
falling to
family.
you. That's a problem. Therefore, she makes the Yibum go away for her and for all her co-wives. The Eishes Achiv Me'imo. So let's just work this case. We're going back to a half brother again, right? We're talking about two brothers, Reuben and Shimon, brothers from their father, not from their mother, right? So what happens? Your brother is married, right? You have a different brother. Let's say David. David and Reuben and David are brothers. Yeah, this is a good opportunity to draw it. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the videotape. Warner Wolf. No.
Warner Wall. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do it like this.
You have to stand to the side.
Yeah. I'm right. So it'll be easier like this.
Go ahead.
So let's say you have. So you have Reuben and Shimon, and let's say you have Reuben's father. Reuben's father is here, right? They share a father, but Reuben has a different mother. We'll call her Sarah. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
You need a better marker.
No, I just gotta turn it. So Sarah and Bob had some kids. One of them was Reuben. Sorry. Yeah, no. Sorry. I take it
Reuben is
back.
different father.
Different father.
Yeah.
They had a kid. Call him David.
Yep.
David and Reuben are half brothers through their
Mother.
mother. Yeah? So they're related,
Right.
but David has absolutely zero relationship with Shimon, right?
Yep.
So we're talking about Ashes. What did it say? It's Ashes Achiv Me'ima.
Eishes Achamimo.
He's married to Dina. Yeah? Divorces her or dies. Dina goes and marries Shimon. Shimon's got a bunch of other wives. Shimon dies. These women fall to Reuben. This one right here, Dina, is his relative. That's
Right.
going to be a problem because, yeah,
Yeah, it's one of the
like
part of
John
the
Madden
family.
says, boom, it's a problem. Yeah? That was fun. Okay. Good. Yeah. All right. Do I need to do it again or we're good?
No.
Yeah,
got
nice
it.
and clear. Check this
One
out.
thing is understanding, the second thing is remembering everything.
Wow.
Figure that out.
Everything
Good.
goes-
Okay, so Eshes Achiv Me'imo, again, we're basically just saying you have a brother from a mother that is not related to your brother from your father, whose wife went ahead and married him. That wife now falls to you. She's not related to Shimon, but she is related to you. All right? That's Eshes Achiv Me'imo. And we have two more. Eshes Achiv Shalei Hayu Ba'olamo. This is actually going to require a thing also. Let's do Colosso first. Colosso is easy. Colosso is your daughter-in-law. Very simple, right? You have a son. Your son's married. Your son divorces his wife. And now she goes and marries your brother Shimon. Completely mutter. Shimon dies. That woman falls to you. She's also to you forever. That's a problem. So that one's a daughter-in-law, always a daughter-in-law. Okay, so let's discuss Eshes Achiv Shalei Hayu Ba'olamo. It's actually a really cool case. They thought of everything.
What happened? Oh, it locks.
It
Yeah, of
locks.
course. Yeah, sure.
It's a Yismach. What do you mean? We don't need the best.
We put it together. That's impressive.
He did.
Okay,
Wow.
got it.
Yeah, I have a little
You come and
bit.
get a
We
whiteboard.
need a little rocket
I think
science.
buy the one for $30. He goes for 150.
What's that?
That's a good one.
I-
I was ready for the $30.
Yeah, well, I knew that if I had the 31, I'd be holding it up with my hand and doing this. And
This is perfect.
Divided by the amount of days, Robert,
Aim
$1 a
the,
day.
aim the camera.
Okay,
Okay.
three looks rich.
we're gonna start with Shimon and Levi. Okay,
Shoot. Really? Why?
and you'll see in a second. Shimon and Levi are brothers. Okay, and Shimon's got, I don't know, let's call it Dinah and Miriam for wives. Let's say, right? And Levi's married to Sarah. Okay. Okay. Now what happens is they're brothers. Yeah.
Yep.
Shimon dies.
Mhm.
So now Dinah and Miriam are what? They are
Sisters.
Levi's, they're not sisters. They're
Zika.
married. They're
Zika.
zakuk to him.
Right.
And what should happen now is Levi should go to Yibam with one of them. And
Yep.
everything's fine.
Oh.
Before he does that, Reuben is born.
After Shimon died?
After Shimon died, before Levi did Yibam.
So the parents are, the
Reuben
mother's
is
alive.
born.
The mother's alive.
These
Their
are
mother's alive.
Yeah. Yeah. The father's alive. So
It's
their parents are still
it's a-
alive. They're
it's a
having
full-
another kid.
It's full brother?
Full brother. It doesn't have to be, but it has, yeah.
Okay.
At a minimum, it has to be the same father.
Yes. Oh, it has to be the same father. And if it's a mother, it's no
It
good?
doesn't matter.
Okay, doesn't matter. Got it. Okay, great.
So what happened? Reuben was born after Shimon died. So that means,
It's ever.
who are these women to Reuben?
Ever.
This is Reuben's
You
brothers.
said it was nothing because
Wives.
they wasn't alive at the same
When
time.
he got born.
When he was born,
Shimon was dead already. you
yes,
said.
exactly. So they never fell to Reuben and
Right,
gave him.
right,
So who are they? They're just his brother's wife.
right.
Brother's wife's an
Even
Erva.
after, even after death.
Ah,
Brother's wife, again, this concept is fundamental yesod. In Yevamos, your brother's wife is usher.
no matter-
Unless there's a mitzvah yibum, she's usher. So this is just a very,
Even if he weren't alive.
well, yeah. Now, if he was alive, let's say Shimon was still alive, Reuben was before Shimon died, even if it's
They can
3
use it.
minutes before, well, then when Shimon died, these two can fall to Levi and Reuben, no
Right.
problem.
So you have to be alive for you.
You have to be alive. In fact, it's learned from Ki Yeshvu
Yachdav.
Achim Yachdav. They have
Got
to be
it.
together. Together means they have to be,
Even though
alive at the
whatever
same
stays, if whether they're alive, it doesn't matter.
yes, Erva is forever, like
But
diamonds.
you have to be alive.
Yes. Now, so what happens in this case? Let's just play it out. So Shimon died. Now Reuven's born. Okay, granted he's a baby, but give it a couple of years for whatever reason they didn't do Yibam, they didn't do. So these two women, what are they? They're Chris Yavam with Levi. That's completely kosher
Did Levi
because
do it?
Levi was.
No, yes.
So first Reuven was born.
Right.
Now let's say Levi went ahead and was Miyab and Miriam.
Yes.
He's married to Sarah, and now he has Miriam.
Yep.
So these two women now, when Levi dies,
It's no good.
fall to Reuven. Problem is, Miriam was already a problem. So Sarah called Sarah, can't be with her. And if let's say there was a third brother, Yehuda, right, who was married to, I don't know, Basia, right, and he did Yibam with Sarah.
He does.
So Sarah is a Tzara Serva, and he dies. Basia is a Tzara Tzara. With her, you can't do it.
Can't
So
do it.
therefore, that
There was another case.
meaning what I just did was our Mishnah is talking about these 15 women being. I know this looks insane, but these women being an Erva, Tzara Serva, and then a tzaras tzara. Tzara and the tzaras tzara. So what I just explained was just the case tzaras tzara. That make sense?
Yeah, I just want to, in here, is it more confusing or less confusing?
I don't know. I didn't look.
Em Chamal,
When is a child considered born?
Ushit, Achit,
Good question. When is a child considered born? Meaning, at what point?
This is the picture.
Yeah, which one is it? Which
I
one?
don't know, that's not easy for me.
What page you on?
Page 16.
So again, conceptually is very simple. All it's saying is, if you have a wife of a brother who doesn't have a mitzvah of yibum with you, she is your Eishes Achif, which is a kares. And if that woman should somehow fall to you in yibum, well, she's no different than Bito or, Moso or all of the other cases. And so therefore the halach is going to be,
Let's see inside, does it make any sense? Yeah, anyone know?
doesn't help me. I look at it, it's
Carter?
But your
For me,
case
it was
is now,
easier. I
Yehuda,
looked
the
down
other
every
brother
case
did
last
Yibum,
yes,
so when
yeah,
that be the last step.
yeah. Yehuda, the fourth brother,
Why is he allowed? It's Ashes Achid.
no, I drew him late, but he was there the whole time. Yeah, he was a brother from the very
He
beginning.
was there all the time.
Yeah,
Got it.
I only drew him after
Got
to make the
got
point. What's that?
What are we looking at?
I don't know what he was. He was.
We're trying
Now,
not to
let's say
waste
page
common
16 is
money.
what Kevin just went, Ashes Achid Shlo Hayom Olam.
We're trying
My
not
guess
to
would
waste
be
common
Rosh
money.
Hashanah, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
these books are so confusing.
Why does it matter?
This was easier for us.
They will get less confusing. Meaning now that you conceptually can wrap your head around the case, going through the pictures makes it a lot easier.
That's true.
Let's review it again, just to make sure we have it. Eishes Achav Shlo Hayom Olam. Try to follow the following conversation, right? You have two brothers, Shimon and Levi. Shimon and Levi are alive, and Levi has a couple of wives. Doesn't matter what their names are. We'll just keep it nice and simple, right? So Levi is married to a couple of wives. Shimon's married to a couple of wives. Shimon's married to a couple of wives and dies before Levi has an opportunity to do yibum. Now again, I keep on saying that because let's say Levi did do yibum. Well, now when Reuven's born, he's being born in a scenario where all of the women are married to a brother. And that marriage makes it so that when now Levi would die,
Do
they don't do yibum.
Is once you marry three Yibum, is considered a different type of marriage?
Yes. In this case, yes.
What is it?
Meaning there are scenarios where that's not the
He's
case.
born afterwards.
Yeah.
Right?
The detail of it happening this way, where it's a major discussion in the Gemara exactly why the order matters, because the truth is the way I'm explaining it really shouldn't matter. Really, the bottom line is she was once your older brother's wife, and you didn't have a heter yibum with her. But so this is the important way to say it. She never was usher to you because you were never alive when she was an erva. So since you were never alive when she was an erva, even though you were born after Reuven died, after Shimon died, it doesn't matter.
It shouldn't matter.
It shouldn't matter. As long as it doesn't matter, as long as Levi, in our case, did yibum first.
Right.
But if Levi didn't, and now you're being
then
born,
that was your case.
and there are two
Yeah.
women who are just standing for yibum, you can't be with them,
Right.
and therefore the erva starts.
Why does it matter that they were once, meaning you were never in the world? Why does it matter that they were once?
That's why what I'm specifically the case specifically
So it
is where
doesn't matter.
you're born and they are right now Yevamos.
There's Zika, there's no Yibum.
Yeah.
Correct.
If the yibum was performed and then you were
That's what he said,
born,
it doesn't matter.
then you're good. Then you're fine. They were never usher to you. So again, Shimon and Levi are brothers and they're alive, and Shimon has a bunch of wives. Shimon dies, leaving over all of his wives to Levi, and Levi's not related to any of them, so that's a perfectly normal case of yibum. And Levi's, he's getting the courage to go up to his former sister-in-law and say, "Hey, I think you're the one I'm choosing." And boom, Shimon and Levi's mom says, "Mazel tov, I had a baby." It's born, and all of a sudden, Reuven, with the two wives of Shimon, have a major problem. They are that's the wife of your brother that you never have a mitzvah of yibum with. So if a couple of years go by, they don't perform yibum or chalitza, Levi gets cold feet, and so Shimon wives are just sitting there waiting. Levi didn't perform yibum. Can Reuven perform yibum? No, Reuven cannot perform yibum. Why not? Because since one of Shimon's both of Shimon's, or whatever,
Right.
Shimon's wives are usher to him.
Right.
Why? Because it's the wife of your brother. It's the wife of your brother who you never had a special mitzvah of yibum.
She's saying Shimon died before he did Yibum, and then they fall to him.
Shimon
Right.
died before
He didn't
died.
do Yibum, he never did
Levi
Yibum.
never did yibum,
Right.
and so now Reuven, when he's born, he's being born
So they
into
go
an
marry
Igor.
Yehuda.
So now let's say there's a fourth brother. This is
Right.
what I was explaining
Right.
before. So let's say now what happens? Levi now does yibum. Okay, so Levi does yibum with one of Shimon's wives, which he can, because again, for her, he was alive at the same time Shimon died,
Right.
right? So Levi is now married to, let's say, a bunch of other women, and this woman who is a problem to Reuven. And let's say he dies now, right? So to Reuven can't do any ibum with any of them. That we just explained. What if there was a fourth brother? Let's say Yehuda, right?
At that point, you should probably do Chisa, just like bad sign.
Yeah, bad sign. Yeah. So Yehuda, let's say, has a bunch of wives also, and now he jumps the gun and goes to Levi's wives and says, "Hey, I'll take care of it."
But it wasn't Ashes Achim though?
Not to Yehuda,
Why?
because he was alive when Shimon died.
Remember,
Shimon died. Remember?
All of the other brothers, the only brother that was born after Shimon died was Reuven.
Tamar and
So
But why, just, I may have a block, why is it not Ashes Achim for all of them? Why is it only?
Because they were all alive because Yibum takes care of it.
and then
Remember, Yibum is the eraser of the Isser of Eishasach, but it only works if you're alive when the brother dies.
I got it.
So as long as Levi, Shimon,
Ashes Achim, and he wasn't, there's no.
and he,
I got it.
so anytime that happens, you're left with a regular normal Isser of Eishasach, which is a kares.
Only falls the chorus on one brother, the other brothers can Yehuda.
Correct.
What happens is if Yehuda does Yibam.
Yehuda does Yibum, and then let's say Yud has another wife, right? So since the one he did Yibum with is a problem to Reuven, that's a Tzara, and that goes. You can have Yehuda, Yisachar, so it doesn't make a difference. Okay.
Right.
So those are the 15 cases. Now, these are not the only list of arayos. This is considerably longer list in Achremos. We talk about mom, we talk about mom's mom, we talk about dad's mom. Like there are other ones that are not listed here. We'll get to the
Why?
because it's not possible for them to marry your brother.
Understood.
Right.
Your mother is either Shimon's mother or Shimon's father's wife. There's no other way for Shimon to exist and have your mother not be a relative of his. So although, yes, if you were to sleep with your mother or your
brother,
your brother
your father's wife.
even if you're only brothers from your father,
Right.
doesn't make a difference.
Right.
Your father's wife is also to you, just like your mother is. So therefore, there's no scenario, and there's 6 of them
You
actually.
can't even come. There's no
There's no discussion, yeah. Meaning there's no scenario where you can ever be having a question, oh, am I supposed to do even with her? Well, she'll never be married to your brother, so it's not possible. So although there are more listed there, they're not listed in our Mishnah. Okay, so now I mentioned earlier that the din of our Mishnah, which teaches us this idea that once you have an erva, then there's a tzaras erva, and then there's a tzaras of a tzaras erva. This erva creates the problem. So what did we say? The point that matters is when the brother dies. Says the Mishnah. What is the halacha? Oh, sorry. Let me just read the finishing off of the first half of the first piece of the Mishnah. Hare elu potros tarasein. These women, they're ervas. They make every one of their co-wives pater from yibum. And then if the co-wife goes and is with the second brother, which would then mean the co-wife of a co-wife, that's a tzaras tarasein or pater mina chalitzo mina yibum atzof olam, like we explained earlier. Okay, says the Mishnah Weiter. The kulan, all of these women, meaning all of the women that I just listed, all of these 15 women, if any one of the 4 things occurs to them before the brother dies, then when the brother dies, they're no longer married to him, and therefore they're not an erva that's part of the house, and then therefore all of the co-wives are okay, and it's a regular normal case of Yibam. What are the 4 cases? First one's nice and easy. In Mesu, if we'll use daughter, just because it's the easiest one I think to just conceptualize. If Shimon married Reuven's daughter, he married his niece, and now Shimon, before he dies, his niece dies. Your daughter dies before Shimon dies. So now when Shimon's dying, the house that falls to you does not include an erva. Since it doesn't include an erva, all of the other women are regular, normal shomeres yavams. They all fall to you. Erva goes away, and therefore the bias that's falling to you does not contain any exempted women. So they're all, of course, have a regular normal din of mitzvah yibum. Oy miyanu. Let's just quickly do miyun. What is miyun? The general rule is as follows: marriage is min haTorah. When a man makes kiddushin and an isha, they're married, 100% min haTorah. What if a woman is a katana? She's under the age of 12. So the halacha is technically she has no das, she has no knowledge. Therefore, she's not supposed to be marrying herself off. So the halacha is that a father can full-fledged min haTorah marry his daughter who's under 12 years old off to another man. That means, yes, if she's under 12, the father can marry her off, and that marriage is not like a quasi-marriage. It is a 100% normal marriage. What if the father is dead, and you have an orphan under the age of 12 who does not have a father, and although it sounds strange to us to marry a 10-year-old off, there were a time when that made sense to do. So the older brother sort of took the place of the father, so to the mother. Mid-Rabbanan, the rabbi said, we're going to give the brother and the mother the quasi-ability like the father, but of course it's only mid-Rabbanan. That means, and just let's work out the lumdus over here, on a Torah level, that marriage is nothing.
Correct.
It's absolutely efes biltcha gayalenu, nothing. Midrabanan, the rabbis came along and said, no, that's a marriage. Now, before we go weiter, before we take it to the next step, because it's a din derabanan, because the mother and the brother are creating this kiddushin derabanan, the daughter, who has no knowledge, halachically, has a right at any point in time until she becomes bas mitzvah to say, I'm not interested in this guy. And if she does, we don't just say that from that point and on, she's not married to him. Retroactively, it's as if she never was. It's an annulment, exactly. So try to imagine this. If she decides to if let's say she convinces her husband to say, give me a get, and let's say let's say the father did it. They're fully deraisa married. She can't just walk away. They're fully married. She needs a get. She needs the real shebang, the whole shebang. Whereas if the brother and the mother did it, that marriage is only midirabanan, and she has an out. What's her out? I don't like the way he treats me. As long as she does it before she turns bas mitzvah. At her bas mitzvah, the marriage becomes min haTorah.
In the kasuba?
I don't know if it's part of the ksuba. I think it's just simply
You can leave the marriage without
she can
get,
leave,
without get.
without anything, because it's
Require get midirabanan or not?
not sure. I don't think so, but it could be. I'm not sure. Good question. I was not sure. But the point is that the marriage to begin with is only midirabanan. And that means now let's put her into our cases. Let's say Shimon marries Reuven's daughter, his niece. Now let's work it out. If Reuven's alive, that doesn't work. So maybe daughter's a bad case.
Right.
Now it happens to be daughter can work. It's too complicated. I'll explain it afterwards. There's a different way. I'll say it now. Reuven marries his daughter off as a 10-year-old. Yeah, and then the full-fledged
And he
marriage.
dies.
No. Then the husband divorces her. If the husband divorces his daughter at 10 years old, she's a katana. The halacha is the father has no longer the ability to sell her off. So interestingly, it's possible for the father, the next time he marries his daughter off, it's only midrabanan. It has the status of this same thing. Once the daughter goes out of that father's rishus the first time, she doesn't go back in. So then technically, the second time around is no different than if he wasn't alive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, he can marry her after that?
Yeah, only midrabanan.
Wow.
Midaraisa the second time is not. It doesn't happen.
So she can only marry herself off the second time then?
Machlokes are showing whether a katana can marry herself off
In general,
if it
after.
accomplished is this
Got it.
derabanan or is it nothing? Definitely not min Torah. At best, she can only do it
Until
midarabanan.
she's 12 again.
Yeah, once she's 12, she do whatever she wants.
Whatever she wants.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make any sense for a 10-year-old to be able to marry herself off. Maybe.
Min Torah, that's for sure, but midarabanan.
Even
Well,
midirabanan doesn't make
So there is a level of das where you're right, maybe 4 years old not, 6 years old not, maybe 10 years old not, but as you get closer to 12, it's
Okay. So,
okay. So either way, so what are we saying? We're saying so we'll use daughter. We'll use daughter as a
She had a get, you said.
Yeah.
Stuff, right?
So let's say she was married min Torah. Father married her off at 8, 10 years old. That husband said, yeah, I thought she was going to be a better cook. Not for me. Divorces her. And now all of a sudden she's a 10-year-old grusha, right? She doesn't go back to her father's house. Her father can marry her off again. The mother can marry her off. The brother can marry her off in this scenario. But that's only midrabanan. So that basically means all miyun is created is the following scenario. What it's saying is that this woman that's married to your brother Shimon can opt out. Let's say she opted out before Shimon died. So that's just another form of ending.
The second marriage.
And she
Yeah.
married-
Yeah. The second marriage was with your brother Shimon. Remember, our case in our Mishnah is Reuven and Shimon. Shimon marries a relative of yours and then dies, and she's falling to you. Well, what happens if Shimon married a bunch of women, and then his last wife that he married was your 10-year-old daughter, who was on her second marriage? Yeah. Or it could be your daughter-in-law, who's also on her second marriage. Let's say your daughter-in-law divorces your son, right? So Shimon marries your daughter-in-law.
It doesn't matter.
Well, Shimon, not to Shimon. To Shimon, right?
It's nothing, Shimon.
Right. Now, so let's say Shimon is married now to your daughter-in-law. Second marriage for her.
Daughter, either one.
Or your daughter, or any one of the other ones.
Is midrabanan midoraisa marriage.
Minat Torah.
Married.
Yeah. Oh, no. If we're talking about a katana, it's older
Yeah.
older rabbanon across the board.
It's like, can a Cohen marry this lady if she's just me?
Good question. No, midrabanan, no. Midrabanan, no.
It wasn't. Why are we gonna make a meaning? We're gonna
That's the byproduct.
Okay.
There's a lot of that. We'll get to that. We'll see. There's a lot of isurim derabanan. In fact, one of the challenges of Yevamos is actually working it out. When I have someone who on a Torah level is a Yevama and on a Derabanan level is a Grusha. I mean, it gets, it's fun. If you have a brain for Lamdus, it's very good shmak. Okay, so now,
If you don't,
even better.
not sure.
You got more schar. So again, now, what's the case again in our Mishnah? Reuven and Shimon are brothers. Shimon is married to a relative. Shimon dies, leaves over a relative to you. You can't be with her. However, what if that relative was a katana when Shimon married her, and that katana opted out before she became 12? That's what miyun means. Now we can go through all 15 cases, which we will not do now, and explain how each and every one of them could be a case of miyun. I just spoke out the daughter case because it's the most complex. If we can understand that one, we'll understand all the other ones, because you can even have a daughter. But the point is that your relative was a katana under the age of 12 when she married Shimon, and Shimon, before he died, she opted out.
But again, she married Midarabana, Midoraisa.
Min HaTorah, they're not. Yeah, Min HaTorah, she's not married to Shimon.
Right.
So therefore, when Shimon dies,
She's on the 12.
she's on the 12.
And she was already divorced legally from Torah.
Yeah.
So what happens now? So Shimon dies.
So Shimon dies. Well, he's not married to your daughter anymore. He's not married to your daughter-in-law anymore because she opted out. Remember, opting out retroactively annuls the marriage. It's like they were never married.
Right.
So the rest of the wives that Shimon has are your regular normal Yevamos, which you have a mitzvah yibum with. Even though they were,
Miyun doesn't knock it out.
Miyun knocks out the marriage, and therefore,
Doesn't
since it
knock
knocks
out
out the
the
marriage,
miyun.
she's no longer married to
You
him.
can do it.
So there's no more.
There's no rights.
Remember, it's all about Shimon's bias, Shimon's home falling to you. Is anyone in that home an erva? Not anymore.
Right.
Not anymore. There was once someone, but like we said, at the moment of death, which is the only time we care about,
It was your daughter.
it was your daughter.
Yeah, right.
Doesn't matter. She's no longer
Your
married to
daughter
Shimon when
wasn't
he
married to
dies.
Shimon, right.
So miyun is particularly obvious compared to
Right, I
Rusha or
agree.
Mesa because it's like even less.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
never happened.
Meaning, let me throw it to you the other way around. Let's say she decided to stick around. Let's say Shimon dies while she's 10 years old. The marriage is only mid'Rabbanan.
Right.
So if the marriage is only mid'Rabbanan,
Yibum is required.
Yibum is still
But
well,
Chalitza will be required.
Chalitza will be required.
That's the last.
That's the last case in the Mishnah. That's the end of the Mishnah. Meaning what we just said was that if Mian is only mid'Rabbanan, then that means even if, let's say, she didn't opt out, if she didn't opt out, then
Married
they're married
Rabbanan.
mid'Rabbanan, Minat Torah. There's still a Zika with her, with the other women, right? She's only an Erev of mid'Rabbanan. Yeah.
We won't let you do Yibum that violates the Rabbanan, so we'll make it do.
Exactly. You have to do Chalitza. Exactly.
All right, forget the Mishnah.
Okay. So continues the Mishnah. That's the second case, Mianu. O Nizgarshu. Nizgarshu's nice and simple, right? You have, let's say your daughter divorced. Shimon divorced your daughter. When he died, they weren't married. So either your daughter died or she got divorced. And then this last case, Oshanimtu Eilinus. Eilinus is a unique halachic concept. It's basically a woman who inherently is incapable of having children. I don't know what the official term nowadays would be.
She's born without reproductive organs.
Yeah, on some level.
Maybe
Right.
sterile?
Sterile might be the right word. Basically, this is a woman who you can't necessarily tell at 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 whether she's an islandess. The only point in halacha where we could say, oh, turns out she's an islandess is at 20 years old. Once she reaches 20 and she doesn't have the normal female reproductive organs, or she doesn't have the normal maturation simanim, like the pubic hairs a woman would have, she clearly does not. It's probably a hormonal deficiency on some level. It's in case she's incapable of having a child. Well, from Sukkim, we'll learn it later. This woman, retroactively, okay, this is an important. Let's just work it step by step. An islandess is someone who there is no mitzvah sibum. Why is there no mitzvah sibum by an islandess? Because the whole point of marrying, of
build
doing
a
yibum,
house.
is to build a house. Now, this does not apply, for instance, to an old lady who
Who
isn't
used to.
hit menopause.
Right.
This doesn't apply to even a woman who was an akara her whole life for I don't know, whatever it is. Maybe she had an ovarian cancer or something like that as a baby or something like that, and it made her infertile. That's not what an islandess is.
Islandess is never.
An islandess is her infertility is a byproduct of her never having developed the female sexual
Reproductive
reality. Yeah. So now what happens? So it's not exactly the same thing, but it's helpful to think of it in those terms, just in terms of it's someone who from the very beginning of their existence. Now, the interesting thing about an islandess is that the guy married her thinking she's not an islandess. Because let's say he married her at 10 years old. You don't know at 10 years old if a girl's going to develop those sexual organs or not. You assume, most women do. But let's say 20 years old comes around, none of those sexual hormonal changes ever occurred. We have to assume that had this guy known at 10 years old that this is what she would have been, we make the assumption that he wouldn't have married her. It's only thinking that she was going to become a normal person. So therefore, this is what's referred to as a mekach tos. Mekach tos means, had I known the deal beforehand, I would have never gotten involved. if someone would have said to the people investing with Bernie Madoff, hey, just know there's 2 floors. You only were taken to the first floor. They didn't show you the second floor. Had I known that, I would have never invested. No one would say, ask the Wilpons. Would they have invested had they known? Of course not. It's a mekach tos. What we say is that retroactively, halachically, means retroactively the entire transaction is batal. So to over here, a man married a woman thinking that she was a normal woman. Turns out by the age of 20, she never developed the reproductive organs necessary. Retroactively, the original kiddushin, gone.
No get.
It's So therefore, of course, if this woman,
There's no zika, there's no nothing.
when Shimon dies, he's got a woman in his now. Interesting case. Let me just throw the following case at you with an islandess. What happens if, when Shimon dies, this woman is 18? She's 18.
We don't know yet.
So right now, and then 2 years later, after Shimon died, and Ruvain did Yibum with one of the other ladies, she got to be 20 years old, and it turns out she's an islandess, or other way around, right?
She's not an islandess.
Not an islandess,
Right.
right?
If she's an islandess, it's fine.
Right. If she was not, right. So
Because then there's Erva.
So yeah, so in either scenario, whichever way you go, you might have a scenario where Reuben either did Yibum because he thought he was
Oh,
good to go because there was an islandess. Turns out she wasn't an islandess. Maybe at 19 years old she started showing.
Right.
Super late bloomer. Well, what's Reuben supposed to do with his wife who he just made Yibum with? This woman is now a mom. If he had kids, the kid's a mamzer. Do we say that? Is that true? Is it retroactive? So again, I'm just pointing out the.
And we have the same question with Miyun, because Miyun is the Mafreya. So
Yes, yeah. Same concept. Meaning, if he dies when she's 10,
Right,
let's say.
right. And she doesn't-
Well, see, the difference there is
Yeah.
if he dies when she's 10, I assume then the marriage is anyways done. So it's with islanders, it's a little bit different. The retroactiveness is not dependent on him; it's dependent on her,
Okay.
like her body. Whereas
Right,
Miyun is
right.
okay. So the mission continues.
Wait a second. Why do we care that it was a mefak? Meaning he passed away, so he was never retroactive. Meaning
Yeah.
he never said I don't want it. So sufficiently still married, and the yibum still applies.
Yeah.
So then how could it be that the kid's a mamzer?
In the case I just gave before, not in the case of the mission, in the unique scenario I just gave.
Yeah.
So let's say when he dies, she's an islandess, or we think she's an islandess,
That's
so-
why,
right?
but he did it, and then later on it became Erva.
Well,
Right.
That's
Okay. I
No,
didn't-
no.
Later on, it became
Yeah,
Erva.
so the flip side's a better case. The flip side's a better case because you're right. Happens to be at 18 years old, we don't know she's an islandess yet, so she would be an Erva, and what she would pater the other tsaros.
Okay.
Meaning your point is a valid point. Meaning practically it would never happen
Right.
because practically at 18 years old we would see that she's not showing any signs, but we wouldn't know for sure if she's an islandess. We would say,
Wait.
yeah, she's an Erva, so you can't be with
Right,
any of the
you're
other
right,
women.
you're right.
In 2 years from now, we might say, look, she came out with no signs. That means her co-wives are okay. You can do Yibum with the other ones. So you're practically 100% right. I was just pointing out that you can have a scenario where the guy dies, and the status of his bias it's
Something,
indeterminate,
something,
which are TBD until whatever. Okay. So the Mishnah says those 4 cases. What does it say? Tzarosei and mutaros. In that scenario, there'd be a normal case of Yibum. Says the Mishnah Vayter. Now the Mishnah is just doing some homework over here. You cannot find the scenario in our Mishnah of Miyun or Islandess where of the following 3 cases. Again, Miyun and Islandess, Miyun because she's a katana and Islandess because she can't have kids. Well, you can't have a mother-in-law who is an islandess, because by definition, a mother-in-law had a
She's a
child
maid.
who is your wife. And by definition, miyun, which is someone who is being married off at the age of 12, for her to fall to you in yibum, right? She can't be your mother-in-law because your mother-in-law has a child. No 10-year-old is having
A child
2 generations of kids. Yeah. And certainly not aim chamoso, the mother of your mother-in-law. Now you're talking about 3 generations, all inside of 10-year-old. A 10-year-old kid is not happening. So v'yata yacholomer bechamoso, mother-in-law, ube'em chamoso, mother-in-law's mother, ube'em chamav, father-in-law's mother. Shinim to island of Really, there isn't much that's being taught in this statement halachically. It's just telling you when you're reading the Mishnah, just know that these 2 cases I just mentioned don't apply in those 3 women. Okay, now the Mishnah actually speaks out what everything we know. It reads pretty quickly.
Yes.
Ketzad potros tzarusein. What is the case of potros tzarusein, stuff that we've been going over and over and over and over and over again? This is going to be pretty quick. Haisabito, the daughter, achas mikol arayas ha'il, or any one of the other 15 that are listed here, nesuas la'achiv, married to Shimon, your brother. V'loy isha acheres, and Shimon has another wife. Umeis, and Shimon dies. Kishem shebito petura, just like you can't do yibum with your daughter. Kach tzarasa petura, so too Shimon's previous wife. You can't do yibum with. This is called a tzaras erva. Holcha tzaras bito. Let's say Shimon's other wife went and did yibum with Levi. V'nisis le'echav hasheni. In this case, we'll call him Levi. He's Levi in our cases. V'lo isha acheres, and Levi had another wife. Well, now who is Levi married to? Levi is married to a tzara erva and a tzaras tzara erva. Umeis, and Levi dies. Kishem shetzaras bito betura, just like the wife that he did in Yibum is also to you because she was originally a tzaras erva. Kach tzaras tzarasa. So too, Levi's original wife is going to be usher to you and petura. And says the Mishnah, afilu hein meya, even if you have Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun, whatever it is, you would be mutter from Yibum and Chalitza, and those women would now be mutter to all go marry whoever they want except for the brothers. What's the case of the cases of Mesu? The cases where it's Mesu, Mianu, right? So this here, Mesu here is not just Mesu, it means any one of the four. Ketzad Mesu, Mianu, Nisgarshu, or Nimtza Islandus, just as Mesu in the Mishnah.
It's a very detailed mission. It explains things you'd expect to have to wait to the Gemara.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's true. Tarusei Mutaros. How do you? What's that case? We just said it 2 seconds ago. Haisa Bita, Achas Mikol Arayos Elu. Your daughter or any one of these 15 women in the Mishnah. Nesuas Lachav, married to Shimon. Same exact case. And in this scenario, the Lo Isha Acheres, he had another wife. Mesa Bito, let's say your daughter died, or decided to get out of the marriage, or she turned 20 years old before it was possible. It turns out she's an islandess, or Shimon divorced her, and then Shimon died, right? So Rasul Muteris in this scenario for Yibum and Chalitza. It's a regular normal case of Zika, because the house that is falling to you does not contain an erva. The kol hayechol. Now, this last halacha here, let's just discuss mian. What did we say before about mian? We said that mian is a marriage midirabanan, but on a deraisa level, there's no marriage.
Nothing.
So that means Shimon, who married your daughter, is only married to her midirabanan. That means the house of Shimon that is falling to you on a Torah level contains no relatives of yours.
He's not married.
Right? So therefore, min Torah, every one of Shimon's wives are zukuka.
Right.
There's a zika. You got to do yibum. You got to do chalitza. But since midirabanan Shimon's married to your daughter, the rabbi said, you can't do Yibum with any of these other ladies because on a Derabanan level, they're a Tzaras Erva. On a Deraisa level, they're regular, normal, run-of-the-mill Yibum situations. They're a Yevama. You have to do Yibum or Chalitza. But since Midirabanan, your daughter is married to Shimon, and since Midirabanan, she then is a Tzaras, all of the other women are a Tzaras Erva. Midirabanan, we said, no Yibum, but of course you need a Chalitza because on a Torah level, all of the other Tzaras are your regular wife. Yeah, so it says I'm going to read it in the Mishnah, and then I'll draw this case in a second because it'll be helpful to see it. So it says over here, the kol hayichala l'mayin, a daughter, let's say, who could do miyan, meaning let's say she's 10 years old and she could choose to do miyan. V'loy miyana, let's say instead of choosing to do it, she decided not to do it, right? While she's a katana, she decided not to, meaning at 10 years old, she didn't choose out. Shimon dies. What happens now? That marriage is only midirabanan. So tzarasa choletzes. Lo misyabemes. Why is it lo misyabemes? Because midarabanan we said don't do yibum. Why is it choletzes? Because min haTorah they're still all of those other women are still your.
That's clear.
Yeah. This last case, maybe just for my own sake and maybe for others, I want to draw it just to point
Biblically,
it.
it doesn't work. What is she?
What's that?
If biblically it doesn't work, what is it?
If what doesn't work?
If it doesn't work biblically,
Yeah.
and she had relations with that man, what is she? On a biblical level.
On a biblical level, she's a
His
pnuya.
daughter,
No,
though.
to Shimon you mean? You mean to Shimon before he dies?
Yeah.
She's a pnuya.
Which they had extramarital sex.
Yeah, basically. So let's say you have
but she's not an erva.
not an error. Yeah. So let's say you have. We'll go back to our case. All right. So you have Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Okay. So now, Reuven had
Daughter.
a 10-year-old daughter. Yeah.
He dies.
Bito. He has a daughter. His daughter.
Married to Shimon.
He dies.
Yeah,
He dies.
We'll make it simple.
No, Ruby, not Shimon does.
We'll do it daughter-in-law.
What do you mean? How did you get married? By a brother?
We'll do daughter-in-law. We'll do daughter-in-law.
How does the son do it? Yeah.
let's make it-
Oh, okay.
Yeah, daughter-in-law. Yep. So his daughter-in-law goes and marries Shimon. So Shimon is. We'll call her.
When daughter-in-law, the son died, and then
Yeah.
Or
Reuben had a
divorced?
son, was married to this woman. They got
but
divorced.
she's 10 though.
So what? I mean,
So
it's a little weird.
he gave. So the father of the daughter-in-law gave, and it was Minatorah. Right, the father was alive. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Okay, she's now Garusha at 10.
Yes.
I'm not Garusha. She's an Almana.
Amana. Well,
Amana.
it depends what happened to Reuben's
Right.
son, but yeah. So now this woman Sarah is 10 years old. Yeah. Usher to Reuven because it's his
Daughter,
daughter-in-law.
yeah,
And or daughter-in-law, whatever it is,
Yeah.
goes and marries Shimon. So now Shimon is married to Sarah and Rachel. And
Same
Sarah is
Sarah.
Usher to
Yeah,
Reuven.
correct.
Yeah, so this woman
Yeah.
over here, that's her, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Shimon is married to these two women.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Does that
now,
mean is only if a husband, the father dies and the brothers marry her?
no, Miyun is
No.
whenever someone marries off a katana.
He's saying if it's the mother or the brothers that.
What are you
marry
talking
her
about?
off.
If a father sells off, there's no mean is only when a
correct,
brother
we said
sells
that,
it.
correct.
So in this case, Reuven's still alive. There's no mean in this case.
It's a daughter-in-law.
Daughter-in-law, not daughter.
It's a daughter-in-law.
Some other guy, Bob.
One
Yeah.
second. Hold on.
Bob had a daughter.
If a father marries off his daughter, father marries off just a katana, she can still refuse. She can still refuse him.
No, Jen.
Why not?
There's no
Not a
mean
bardav.
there.
She's not a bardav.
She's completely in rishus of the father. The
Yeah.
father can marry his daughter.
It's
Still
Bob.
12.
It's his
say.
stuff. It's his stuff.
Okay.
Rabbi,
Understood.
let me do this a little bit better. You have a guy, Bob. Bob has a daughter. We'll call her Sarah.
That's the word we use.
Reuven has a son. Reuven's son is Shmuel. Yeah,
Right,
Shmuel marries Sarah.
Yeah.
How? Miyun.
Just his father.
yeah, Bob is alive.
The father.
me.
No, sorry, not Miyun. Sorry, no. Now you got me confused.
Right.
Shmuel marries Sarah.
Yeah.
Which-
Regular
Torah.
marriage.
Sarah's
Full-
10 years old, though,
10 years
guys.
old.
That's the main thing, 10 years old,
10 years old.
right?
Sarah is married to Shmuel. Shmuel gives a get.
Yep.
Now, who is Sarah married to? Nobody. Right? This Kedushin, Torah, was just ended with a get. So now Sarah, who
Marries
is
Shimon.
10 years old, okay, marries
She's up there,
Shimon.
yeah.
How? Why? Why'd you marry him?
What?
Through who married her?
Her brothers married her off.
Her brothers married her. It has to be somebody died.
Even her father can marry her at this point.
We know that, but there's no mean when a father sells.
If the father is doing it for a second time, this
Oh,
marriage is only
We just
done
said that, we said
Oh,
that.
you're getting a hard case. Why don't you go to a normal case?
Won't be a normal case.
Yeah.
Okay, so explain this.
Where
case.
Reuben dies and the brother sells her, and brother marries her off, and that's a normal case of mean. Reuben, the father dies.
So so pick one. So what would be the relationship between the girl and Reuven? So you don't want Bito, you don't want daughter-in-law. Which case? We have
He
to
wants
find an
Bito,
Arab.
he wants
Oh.
Bito.
Bito has to be where the father died, then that means Reuven's the father.
Yeah, got it.
That can't be. So it has to be someone else. I'm picking Bob.
Okay.
We can make Bob die. Bob could be dead. This could have been the
Is
Rabbanon.
The
Bob-
main point is that it's
is
me,
Bob
as
the
you say, it's
father?
me, that's what you
Yeah.
say, yeah.
Who's the
This
father?
doesn't have to be me.
Reuben
Bob,
or-
Bob is the
This
father,
has to
it's his
be-
daughter-in-law,
This over
Reuben's
here,
daughter-in-law.
this over here has to be a
Okay.
katana
Right,
marrying Shimon. So let's say Bob's not. So let's say Bob married his daughter off the first time, but then Bob died,
right,
and so now
the wife, the
Janet.
older brother,
Janet or the older brother Sam
right.
went and took their 10-year-old Sarah and married her to Shimon with their up on. So now Shimon is married to Sarah, who is a katana, mid their up on.
Yep,
Right. This one is a regular deraisa one, but this is a derab on. Right.
Right.
Now, when Shimon dies, these women here
fall to Reuben.
fall to Reuven. Now, if Sarah was 15, sorry, if she was a gedola, this would be a normal regular
Correct,
case.
correct.
Mina Torah, Torah doesn't see her. The Torah only sees Rachel.
Right.
So Rachel, Mina Torah, has to do even with Reuven.
Because there's no erva, so that's it,
Yeah,
right,
she's a
correct.
regular
Yes,
erva.
yeah, yes, clear,
Midrabanan,
Right.
there is an erva.
right,
That's a Rabbanon erva.
right,
So that Rabbanon
Yeah.
erva makes Rachel
yep,
Asr midrabanan to do yibum, but it doesn't completely remove the zika. The zika is still there, min haTorah. So
correct.
therefore, Rachel needs chalitza. Can't do yibum.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, let's ask a question. What if Reuben actually marries Rachel? What is the status of that relationship?
If Reuven, very good question. What happens if Reuven went ahead, shalok halacha,
Yeah,
and did yibum with Rachel?
yeah.
They're married,
Okay,
and then he has to get a divorce.
and he has to get a divorce.
Yibum works, min haTorah.
Yeah.
Now he's married to someone who's also to be with.
Meaning, if you married someone that's an erva abundant to you.
What is the Kohen supposed to do with a chalutza?
Yeah.
Kohen's not allowed to marry a chalutza midrabanan. If he married her, the halacha is he's got to give her a get.
Yeah. Okay.
But a grusha is the race, no?
Gruesome.
All right.